All right, welcome to the Mental Pulse Podcast. Today we have with
So
us, today we have with us Mr. Joshua Langford. Welcome, Josh.
thank you for welcoming me. Good to see you.
Yes, good to see you. Thanks for being here today. Yes, me and Josh go way back when I coached at Madison Academy High School here in Huntsville, Alabama. So Josh, tell
Mhm.
us who you are, your background, and your athletic identity story.
Okay, so when you say athletic identity story, how deep you want me to go?
As deep as you want to go.
Okay. So my name is Joshua Langford. I am I identify as a Christian. I'm married to Lauren Madison Langford. We have a son on the way. I work at Madison Academy as a Bible teacher, and I'm also an assistant coach for the boys varsity basketball team. I'm 6'3". I'm not 6'6". I know a lot of people will give me those extra inches, but I've come to the conclusion and I've accepted the fact that I am 6'3". Uh, After all those times going to the doctor and they measured me at 6'3", and I'm like, that got to be wrong. That's not right. But eventually, I've come to that acceptance. And so I'm actually from Huntsville, Alabama, but I was born in Florence, Alabama. Um, and that's a little bit about me. Well, I also graduated from Michigan State University as well. And I attended Madison Academy High School, like you just said, graduated from there. But a little bit about my athletic identity is that I started playing basketball when I was 5 years old. There's actually somewhere a picture of me sitting with my dad on UNA's bench, um, and he's coaching as a GA, and I'm like a little man, I'm a little jit then. And then there's also the story that my grandmother tells of me being born and how the basketball team, or at least some of my dad's basketball teammates at the time, because I was my dad and my mom, they had me while they were going to UNA, and so my dad was playing basketball at that time, and so my grandmother tells the story of how born there were basketball players there. So I was going to say my athletic identity starts at 5, but I think it starts at birth.
Right.
And even before I actually touched a basketball at 5, because of all of those different moments that I've had in my life with basketball before I could even know what basketball was. Um, and so I started playing at 5, more organized. I ended up I think I played in the Civic League at Optimus Park. By the time I was 9, I was playing travel basketball. Um, and then by the time I was 12, um, I started to begin to become what quote unquote nationally noticed when I was 12. And then I ended up going to Madison Academy um, after that time. So probably around like 13 or 14 years old, I went to Madison Academy, and I started playing basketball there after I set out a year because I got held back when I transferred there. And the reason why I got held back when I transferred there, it wasn't necessarily because of athletic reasons. It was more or less the my parents, they felt like the curriculum may be more of a somewhat of a challenge for me, um, because it's just a difference from public and private school. At least most believe that. And so that was the reason why I got put back a grade. My dad he wasn't like a mad scientist trying to come up with this formula
Right.
so that his son could be top 10, top 20, or whatever the case when he graduated high school. But um, so I got a chance to play at Madison Academy my 8th grade year. And I played varsity from the time I was in 8th grade all the way to the time I was in, I think, 12th grade. Not I think, but 12th grade. And then by the time I finished my eighth grade AAU season, I got my first offer from the University of Alabama. And from that point on, things just began to skyrocket for me. Um, and I ended up being able to play in the Nike Hoop Summer game my last year of high school, the McDonald's All American game my last year of high school. I was a Gatorade Player of the Year. So throughout my high school career, I was able to accumulate a few accolades or a good amount of accolades for my abilities, the abilities that God had given me. And then I went to Michigan State, which is 10 hours from, depending upon how you drive. Yeah, depending upon how you drive, it's about a 9 to 11 hour drive. And there, I had some success there with different teams. Went through two major injuries my junior year and senior year of college, and towards the end of my college, well, the last year of my college career, I started just feeling like, and I'm sure we'll talk more about this, but the last part of my college um, leg, or like my last year, I just started feeling more of a desire to do things differently. When I say do things differently, what I mean is like I started feeling like, okay, basketball is something that I've been good at, but it's not necessarily the only thing I can be good at. And so I ended up transitioning from basketball after I graduated college. I did not go pursue a professional career. I was actually in the middle of picking an agent, three agencies, and I decided to go a different route. And that's identity, I guess, in a nutshell.
Okay. Okay. So going back, just going to kind of go back to the start a little bit.
Yeah.
So was basketball the only sport that you played, or did you play anything else?
No. So yeah, basketball wasn't the only sport I played. That's a good question.
Okay.
So when I was, I think, 6 or 7, I played like the normal little league sports. I played football, soccer, basketball included, and then I played a little bit of t-ball.
Okay.
But baseball was just too slow. It was just like too slow for me. Like I was making dirt angels in in the outfield. It just wasn't, for some reason. It just wasn't something that I connected with. But what's crazy is that my dad is like a small stint in my life where I remember my dad, he was trying to get me to do things with my left hand,
Mm,
because he was like, if you can be left-handed, you can be a left-handed pitcher. Left-handed pitchers, they pretty well off. Uh,
absolutely.
yeah, but that's just my dad and his wisdom. I mean, he's such a
Oh yeah.
wise and knowledgeable man. But anyway, so yeah, I did play some other sports, and then by the time I got to um, middle school, I only played football and basketball, and I stopped playing soccer probably when I was like 8 or 9,
Okay.
maybe a little bit earlier than that. And so I played football from probably like 8 all the way to 14, including basketball as well. And then I stopped playing football my eighth grade year, well, my freshman year of high school was when I stopped playing.
Gotcha. So do you think that so you specialize around 13, 14, and just doing basketball, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So do you
Mhm.
think it's wise for kids to do multiple sports, be multi-sport athletes, or just specialize at an early age? Because a lot of kids are just specializing early, like 5, 6, into one
Yeah.
thing, and I just want to get your thoughts, your opinions on that.
Yeah. I don't really feel like it has to be this or that. Like what I mean by that is it doesn't have to be, okay, you should only focus on just one sport. You should only specialize on one sport by the time you get to the X amount of age.
Right.
Um, and then also, I don't think you shouldn't try other things from, all throughout your high school career. I mean, if you look at, and I think things are changing now, but I mean, you have like Deion Sanders. He was somebody that he
Right.
played sports. Some people are of the belief that if you can get your kids in multiple sports at an earlier age, it does something for like their mobility, their agility, and
Yep.
just the longevity of them being able to use their bodies, even outside of sports, because you're not focusing on one particular muscle group. But
Right.
I think there are multiple camps, multiple schools of thought. I just feel like for me, um, I think it's just more about allowing your child to explore.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you explore, you get a chance to discover,
Mm-hmm.
and then when you get a chance to discover, you find understanding. And what I mean by understanding is like you get a better grasp on like who you are.
Right. Absolutely.
So so I feel like I don't feel like there's one size fit all. But what I am of the belief that every person should explore, not just this is an athletic identity podcast. So but I just want to exclude athletics or just only include athletics. I think people should explore all different kinds of things. Like my dad, when I was um I think I was around like 9 or 10 maybe, he put me and my sister in piano lessons. And so it didn't last because we were traveling so much for basketball. Um, but just the mere thought of him doing that, I think that was like
Oh,
really,
absolutely.
really wise because that sowed a seed into me of not just allowing myself to be boxed in by just one particular identity,
Right.
which I think when you talk about athletic identity,
Yep.
the sports world can sometimes make you feel like you have to specialize.
Mm-hmm.
And if you specialize, um, that's the only way you can become successful.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily think you have to, I don't think it's like one size fit all. I just believe that you should allow exploration to take place for your, the person that you are overseeing as a guardian or
Yep.
your child, rather.
Yep. I no, I
Mhm.
totally agree that I think because I was a multi-sport athlete. I played volleyball, I played softball, and I played basketball. And I ended up
Okay.
specializing in basketball when I was a honestly, I played volleyball. I stopped playing softball because it interfered with AAU basketball. I stopped doing that in my middle school years, but
Mhm.
in high school, I was playing volleyball all the way up until my junior year, and I stopped. So yeah, so I'm a big proponent and fan of multi sports. I do agree with the exploration and discovery because you have to make
Mhm.
that decision, and it does work the different muscle groups too as well. So
Yeah.
it has
Yeah.
definitely some benefit to it. So, but yeah, I am a big proponent of that. But going back to your story, so you just one accolade you forgot was you were 3A player of the year like 5 times at
Yeah.
Madison Academy from eighth grade
Uh-huh.
to the 12th grade year. So
Yeah.
not to say I'm counting, but I do remember that. So just to give you guys a backstory, I coached at Madison Academy from like 2010 to about 2020, and Josh, like I said, was within those years on the boys basketball team. And I had the honor to coach his sister as well, Jaden Langford. And I also had the pleasure of actually coaching with his dad, Tella. So definitely a good family and definitely as you speak of the wisdom that about your dad, I can completely echo that because
Mhm.
Tella's does he has out of the box thinking and it makes you, open up and look at things from a different perspective. So
Mhm. Mhm.
but going to Michigan State. So your freshman year, you went there after being, one of the top. What did you end up in the country from a ranking standpoint? You're the top, what,
Think like 20.
top 20? Yeah, leaving high
Yeah.
school. And so you went to Michigan State, and did you have pretty big expectations? How did your freshman campaign go?
Yeah, I had a lot of expectations put on me personally. Like expectations that I had for myself. And then I think whether it was perceived or not, there were in my mind external expectations as well. Because I think sometimes, as an athlete, you can put you can perceive that there are external expectations being placed on you, or expectations that are being placed on you, expectations coming onto you from the outside, and they aren't really there. It's just like it's only your own personal and internal expectations that you're putting on yourself that are more than you can bear. And so because they're more than you can bear, you just see everybody else's view of you through that lens. And so then you start thinking like, well, they think I got to do all of this, or
Right.
they 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 got so much they got so much riding on me, or it's they want me to do all of this, and I can only, so like you sometimes it's you really don't have external expectations. It's just the ones that you're putting on yourself, that are somewhat unbearable, which
Right.
also expectations aren't bad, but they should be realistic. But if you're looking at them through the lens of your unrealistic expectation of yourself, you might be saying somebody else is putting those on you when they aren't really doing that. But so I did have expectations for myself that I think were a little bit unrealistic. And when I say unrealistic, what I mean is I wasn't as self-aware. I wasn't as self-aware of myself as a player.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had conversations with my dad about this, which is pretty cool. Like that we can talk honestly about my career. Um, but one thing that my dad and we talked about, and I came to the realization of this towards the end of my career, was that I had a hard time believing in myself.
Mm.
And so because I had a hard time believing in myself, that unbelief that I had hovering over me was
Mm-hmm.
like stopping me from moving in like this freedom on the court. And
Yeah.
some people can hear that and think like, wow, how could you play the way that you play and yet still have those challenges and those struggles of like believing fully in your capabilities and believing fully in your work, and the things that you were able to do. And so I think going into my freshman year of college, I was afraid, and I felt like I wasn't adequate to live up to the expectations I put on myself.
Yeah.
And so I think there's like this phrase that I was really just talking to my wife about this before we got
Oh wow.
on the this Zoom meet, this podcast. And there's a phrase that says, whatever you behold,
Mm-hmm.
that is what you become. So if I am, and like, okay, another way to put it is like, wherever your focus is, that's where your life will go.
Right. Yep.
Or whatever your mind is on, that's what you will begin to walk out. So it's like, because I was so focused on like trying to live up to a certain expectation and feeling like I wasn't good enough to live up to it, I was imprisoned by it. And so when I get on the court, it's like I'm more in like this state of anxiety than peace,
Oh,
because I'm so focused on trying to not be perceived as inadequate, because I'm believing I am inadequate, and me believing that I am inadequate is causing me to focus on the fact that I am inadequate, which is stopping me from actually playing as if I am adequate.
all right.
Does
Wow.
that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. So my question is, did this mindset, was that ever within yourself in high school, or did it just appear when you started in Michigan State?
Um, I think at times it showed up,
Mhm.
when I was in high school, specifically when I would get around people who I felt like were just as good as me.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
So
when I would get around people that were just as good as me, sometimes I could get into like um this place of fear. I was like, am
mhm.
I really good enough?
Yeah. Yeah, I was just reading a quote today, talking about Women's History Month. And Michelle
Yeah,
Obama, she actually, I read a quote, and she asked the question, "Am I good enough?" And her response is, "Yes, you are." It's from a book of From Becoming, and
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I honestly, I'll be completely honest, I really feel like a lot of men have that, but from my experience, I'm really talking about Black men. Sometimes the insecurity, sometimes the just the lack of um just just knowing that they can do it. I guess my experience a lot of times comes from raising my son, and
hmm,
seeing that, early on, and he's 4, but early on he just really struggled with his confidence, and
yeah,
it took him a long time to get where he was truly confident in his abilities.
hmm,
And I was be like, Richmond, hey, who believes in Richmond? And I'd be like, I know your mommy believes in Richmond, your daddy believes in Richmond, your T-top
yeah,
nana and grandma.
yeah,
And I said, but who really believes in Richmond? Who has to believe in Richmond all the time? And so he was like, Richmond has to
mhm,
believe in Richmond. And so if
yeah,
Richmond believes in Richmond, then hey, he can conquer the world. But
yeah,
yeah, insecurity, I do feel like is a thing that sometimes stifles our Black men. But especially like you said, when we're actually amongst competition,
yeah,
the top of the top, the cream of the
yeah,
crop. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's good. Can I say something to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, because I don't want to get in the way of your questions, but
No, this is
I
good.
get excited with conversations like this. I could talk about this stuff all day, but um, so I watched this documentary probably like 3 months. No, I want to say 3 months ago. Maybe I think it was around Christmas. I watched this documentary about Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers,
Hmm.
and everybody. I mean, everybody has different beliefs, and so I'm not even. I don't want to get into like different beliefs about him or whatever. But anyways, um, I was really inspired by the message. Like, first of all, listening to the documentary or watching the documentary helped me see a different view of how you can communicate to kids. And what I so appreciated about the documentary and what it was teaching was how the one message that I this is what I got from it. The one message that he always tried to communicate to the younger generations was like what you said about what you do with your son is, you are valuable and you can believe in you. I think he said that he would always try to end the show and um you're good enough by just you being you.
Mm,
Or maybe it was like, I like you and just I like the you, um I like you just being you or something like that.
yep.
But it has something to do with them being okay with who they are. And so going back to what you said about like getting around in those spaces of
Yeah.
competition, if it's not seen in the right aspect or in the right lens, you will always try to go into competition feeling like you need to prove who you are and not just going there being okay with who you are.
Yes. Yes.
And like the reason why I so appreciate Mr. Rogers, and even in my classes, I try to take his concept and communicate it to students because I feel like self-esteem is like healthy self-esteem is founded upon a understanding that you are good enough. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't get better. But if you're never okay with just you being good enough, when it's time for you to get better, you will feel inadequate
Mm-hmm.
because you will hear the call to get better as an accusation on you as not being good enough.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yep.
So I feel like, especially like you said in the African, I feel like I think African American men, but I think just men in
In
general,
general.
because and even in athletics too,
Mm.
because like competition, it always, if it's not looked at in the right way, it'll make you feel like if I don't win,
Yeah.
then me not winning means that I'm a loser.
All right. I
And
can see
so if
that.
I'm a huh?
I can see that. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. And so if I go into a game believing I'm already a winner, even when I lose,
Yeah.
I'm not imprisoned by the fact that I lost.
Yeah.
But I can learn from my loss and use that, like Jay-Z said, a loss isn't a loss, it's a lesson. I can use that as
Mm.
a lesson so that I can show how much of a winner I am the next time I play.
Absolutely.
So like if athletes came into competition already knowing that they were winners, they would never leave feeling like losers. They
Mhm.
would just leave with an understanding like, okay, we have opportunity. We lost this game. This is just an opportunity.
Right. And it's also in the mindset of making sure that you kind of have a, I guess, a better mindset in regards to failure because,
Right.
we think that failure is the end all be all. And honestly, failure is what creates success. And so because that's the only way that we know to get better and how to,
Mhm.
if we kept winning in life, we would not have anything to improve on in our mind. But if we, as we fail, we always find ways to persevere and find ways to get better and improve. And
Mhm.
as you said, I mean, it's all about, you looking at it as opportunity or a challenge.
Yeah.
People say challenges are opportunities, but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely.
It's the obstacle or opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to Michigan State, your freshman year, you ran to had, I guess, more so had some anxiety in regards to your expectations and things that equate to how you had envisioned them to be, right?
Mhm.
So how did you move forward into going into your sophomore year?
Um, I would say I had a pretty good sophomore year. Like in terms of, see, sometimes it's weird when I talk about my career with people because I always talk about the mindset that I had versus the way that I played.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes when I talk about my career, I feel like people are waiting for me to talk about the way I played, but I
Mm-hmm.
always talk about it from the way that I thought.
Okay.
Now, because looking back on it, I can see that my going back to what you were talking about, it begins in the mind. I can see that my mindset wasn't it wasn't as developed. And it's not like me knocking myself, it's just me saying like, okay, I can, I could grow in that space. And then also it's an opportunity for me to learn and so I can give it to somebody else that's coming behind me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like sometimes mindset is undervalued and success is overvalued,
It
or
is.
there is there's like a misunderstanding of success. Success is, okay, how many points did you get, or how many how many championships did you win?
Yeah.
um, and I feel like now I'm of the mind that, in my mind, success is, okay, how did you feel about your missed shots? Like, what were you thinking about when you missed that shot and you had to go back down on defense and play? Like, were you still thinking about that shot? Like, what? To me, for me, that's success. And so I speak about my career from that place.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think my sophomore year, I try to like separate the two.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I would say like my sophomore year, um, in terms of like output, I was much better. Like I was much better because I was more comfortable.
Hmm.
Um, and then we had a really good team that year. We had Miles Bridges, Cassius Winston,
Oh
Jaron
yeah.
Jackson, Xavier Tillman.
Oh
We
yeah.
had my boy Tum Tum leading the charge, on and off the court. We had a really good staff. Um, so that was like a really we were just hard to beat that year. And we did lose in the we did lose in the second round, which I think that shocked a lot of people.
Yeah,
And I
I
think
had you guys winning on my bracket.
yeah, because we were like we toggled between 1 and 2 the whole year.
Yeah.
Um, so that was like probably the most talented team I ever been on in my whole life. And so just for me to be, I mean, a consistent contributor, a part of that team is just like, wow, I could play a little bit. So I would say my sophomore year was better, way more better in terms of output. But I still think that I was still my mind wasn't as um it wasn't as firm
Hmm.
and stable. But sophomore year was better.
Okay.
And I can skip over because I don't like leaving on like well I'll stop. I'll let you ask the next question.
Yeah. So your sophomore year is better. You produce more,
Mhm.
from a, offense standpoint. And so you went into your junior year, and you probably was one of the top returners for coming back, right? Going into your junior.
Yes, that was.
And so how did that year manifest?
Um, it was really good in the beginning. Like that was if it was a year where I felt like I was in terms of output playing my best,
Hmm.
I would say it was my junior year of college. And when I say playing my best, I'm talking about playing my best
Yep.
in college. Um, and so at that time, I think probably around it was after we had a game where I played against Texas
Hmm.
and Las Vegas, and I think I scored 29 points in the whole game, but I had 22 points in the second half.
Oh wow.
I ended the and we were actually down like 15 early on, like in the first half of the
Mm.
game. And so we came back in the second half and we beat Texas. They were a pretty good team at that time too. Um, we beat them. As a matter of fact, I think they had a lottery pick on their team that year. But
Okay.
we actually came back in that game. We beat them. And then like I said, I had 22 in the second half. And after that game, it was like my confidence like skyrocketed. Um, and so I think I started to really get into a flow, and people started to like, okay, saying that like, yeah, he can do it this year. Like if he consistently plays like that, then
Right.
this would be his last year here for sure, like no doubt.
Right.
And so get it. So 13 games into that season, I get injured,
Mm.
and um, I have a stress fracture in my navicular bone on my left foot. And
Mm.
so that season, I didn't play. I didn't play the rest of that season.
Mm.
Yeah, my junior year, and that was really challenging for me. And I think it was really challenging for me because I had so much. Um, I had like these high hopes of like, okay, this is the year for me. I'm getting ready to,
Yeah.
uh, achieve the dream that I felt like I wanted to achieve
Hmm.
going into college, which was to go play professional basketball. And then when the injuries came, it was just really challenging for me. I remember being in my room by myself, and you know, I didn't think about taking my life, but
Mm.
also at the same time, I was questioning, okay, what is my life? Um, because I was just so engulfed into the season and just like I was putting so much into basketball. So it's like because I never really I'd had surgery. Um, like I had a up until that point, I think I'd had maybe 3 or 4 surgeries. And then I had one surgery that stopped me from playing, from being able to play my AAU season in high school. But it was so different than like this injury in my junior year of college was so much different was because I just felt like my my hopes were just like taken away. It was like I knew I was going to be able to come back in um in high school, and I knew I was going to be able to come back my junior year of college as well. But it's like I was just so deep into the disappointment.
Yeah.
It was hard for me to see that okay, there is going to be there's a you know it's an opportunity like we were just talking about. I
Yes.
couldn't see it
Yeah.
opportunity. I only saw it as the obstacle at that time. And so I did work through like my. You gonna ask me another question before I just keep going?
No, well, so I was gonna ask you, in regards to, so you said that you had another. This wasn't your first injury,
No, it wasn't my
so
first
it was
injury.
but it was a major injury, probably.
Yeah,
Because I think you said that you went in high school. You had an injury. Was it your hand or something?
yeah. So
Yeah.
I had 2 surgeries on my hand. I had surgery on my knee.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
And I can understand the fact that you were just so disappointed because you had put so much time into the preparation to the junior
Yeah.
season, and you were doing well,
Hmm.
and you had like, okay, this is the year
Yeah.
that I might actually be able to reach my dream of going pro. So quick question,
Yeah.
did Michigan State, do they have access to mental health professionals, like, dealing with, the mindset from getting back from injury or handling injury, or whatever situation athletes might face?
Yeah. They do have available. There was all kind of stuff available on campus.
Okay.
Um, I would say that sometimes you can be so focused on the obstacle
Mm-hmm.
that you miss out on the opportunities
Mm. Okay.
that help you stop seeing the obstacle as an
Obstacle.
obstacle and as an opportunity.
Gotcha.
So it was an array of people on campus that could have possibly helped me work through that. And righteously so, I didn't always show that when my first injury took place. I
Okay.
wasn't showing it as much. I wasn't communicating about it as much.
Gotcha.
And it wasn't because people weren't asking me. It was because I didn't know how to.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't really know how to be honest. Um, and so I think sometimes as an athlete, and I've talked to a few athletes who kind of walked through injuries, and one of the things that I always share with them that I felt like I learned from my process was to just let yourself feel. And I think a part of me not being able to communicate how I was feeling was because I wasn't letting myself feel.
Mm.
But if you let yourself feel when it comes to like your injuries, you get language for you'll get language for what you're going through, and then you'll be able to communicate it and express it. That's like
Mm.
one of the things that counselors do is that they just listen to you. They ask you questions and then they listen to you talk.
Yeah.
And usually those questions are activating a a emotion, or they're activating you internally so that you can just start communicating. And the more
Right.
you start communicating, the more you process, and all of a sudden you get these light bulb moments.
Right.
And so I don't think I really knew how to communicate and then also let myself feel so I could communicate um, to the people that were around me that could have possibly helped me
Right. Right.
go through, overcome this challenge.
Yeah. I mean, going into that is, um, I think a lot of times I'm kind of going back to men as well. Men, and I think this is probably a universal thing versus just a certain sector, but sometimes I feel like men, they don't deal with emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I'm raising my son, I'm really putting a huge emphasis on expressing emotions. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you can express your emotions or communicate, not really express, but communicate your emotions, that will help you feel better for one. And then for
Mm-hmm.
two, somebody will understand, what you're actually dealing with. So I actually just bought a little chart that has the different emotions. And
Mm-hmm.
just the other day, I was like, hey, point to the emotion that you feel. And then once you do that, like express why you feel that way. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and so that kind of goes, back to kind of what you were talking about, being able to communicate how you're feeling. Because I feel like a lot of times, people internalize and we don't allow that to be, come out of us. And so sometimes internalizing things can sometimes hinder us, especially our health, if you're not careful. So
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. Can I speak to that, or do you want to ask me another
yeah, go
question?
ahead. Yeah, I asked you another question after you respond.
Okay, now I may start talking a long time, so
It's okay, Josh. Sure.
I'll just let you know. But no, I definitely agree with you because if I go to my senior year of college, I got injured again.
Mm, mhm,
And so I did all of this work to get back to be able to play my senior year of college, this being my last year of college.
mhm,
Um, and so I do all this work, and then my foot is still bothering me. And then they tell me that I need to get another surgery.
mm,
And then I'm going to be out for the rest of my senior year.
yeah,
And so when that took place, um, that just like knocked the breath out of me. And it was like I had like this dark cloud over me,
mm,
everywhere I went. I wouldn't say that I wasn't clinically diagnosed with depression, but I could say that I was really sad.
mhm,
I was really sad. And I think a lot of that I would say a lot of that season of my life was really challenging, but but um, I came into contact with Mark Baldwin and Jackie Baldwin, and they were pastors of a ministry, and they still are pastors of this ministry in East Lansing. And when I met them in this season of my life, Mark really walked with me in the process of being able to understand how to do what you said you're trying to teach your son to do.
mm,
And I mean, we had numerous amounts of like a number of conversations about just, my thoughts, how I'm feeling. Um, and what that did for me was it was like the seed, it was like a catalyst for
mhm,
me to begin to see how important it is to not just communicate, um, your emotions, but also communicate your emotions to God,
mm, yeah,
because sometimes we don't always think we can do that.
mhm,
So because we don't think we can do that, we don't do it. And so because we don't do it, we end up not being able to live as free as he wants us to,
Right.
and as we were created to live. And so I think I was able to begin to actually somewhat get to that place,
Mm.
in that season of my life where I started communicating in a healthier way about how I was feeling. And I remember one of the first sessions I had with, actually, so, and this may be answering some more questions, I don't know, but the emotional wheel, the first time I ever encountered an
Mm-hmm.
emotional wheel was when I was actually in this program called, or like, it's a program, but the organization is called Prolific Institute.
Okay.
And essentially what they do is it's a team of people. Um, and that really, I mean, it's a really good program. But essentially what they do is they help athletes um, transition to life after sport.
Okay.
And so they had an emotional development piece with, and then they had a professional development piece.
Oh, wow.
The emotional development piece really impacted me so much. And in that emotional development segment that they would do, that was when I began to learn more about like the emotional wheel, and identifying how you're feeling, and then being able to just express, not try to do it perfectly, but just
Right.
express,
Yeah.
how are you feeling, what does this feel like, because I feel like as an athlete it's easy to be so performance driven,
Mm-hmm.
and which isn't like, it isn't bad to have a desire to be excellent, but it becomes detrimental when it it takes you over into perfectionism, and you don't even let yourself be.
Yep.
And so like for me as like an athlete at that time, it was somewhat difficult for me to communicate the emotions that I had, because I was so focused on trying to communicate them perfectly.
Right. No, I completely understand. So,
Yeah,
because, going back to something you previously said about, how from a mindset, it's all about how many points you score. It's about
right.
how many championships you win. That's because that's what's awarded or rewarded. Like people
Hmm.
reward that type of stuff. We don't reward, what's your mindset here and what's your mindset there. And so our
Yeah,
focus goes to what they are providing rewards for or awards for.
right.
And so we don't
Mhm.
really value necessarily the mindset to anything else outside of that. And so
Mhm.
that's because we're so focused on we just want instant gratification, right? And we don't really
Mhm.
appreciate anything else outside of that. If it doesn't benefit toward that, then it's really devalued, unfortunately.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
but
And so,
go ahead.
am I talking too much?
No, not at all. I'm enjoying myself. Thanks.
Okay, yeah. And so you said something really valuable, is that we reward, like, we we give people accolades for performance,
Yeah.
but we don't give people accolades for just being people.
Mm-mm.
And so I feel like one of the things that is valuable for an athlete to know is that they are they are the blessing.
Mhm.
And so when the athlete knows that they are the blessing, even if they don't get an accolade, which will be perceived as the blessing, the accolade is perceived as the blessing
Yeah.
because it's like the material thing, right? But in all actuality, and that's why I think it's out when I communicate about, I guess, a healthy way of thinking. I don't think you can, from my personal view and worldview, I don't think you can exclude faith. because faith is the basis of God is the basis of human existence.
Agree.
So if you look at how God created humans, he never created humans to not see themselves as blessings. He created humans to see themselves as blessings and go out and bless other things.
Mm-hmm.
So like as an athlete, if I know that I am the blessing, and even going back to what I said earlier, I am the winner. When I get the accolade doesn't cause me to feel any lesser or any greater than myself, because when before I even touched the award, I knew that I was the blessing.
Yeah. Yeah. The struggle of this type of mindset is it's just because social media, I mean, people like to put, their numbers, their stats, any awards on social media because it gets so much praise. And so with the youth today, that they're all about instant gratification, and I'm not, I think they understand they probably are a blessing, but being able to put what they produce on the court or off the court is what people desire, unfortunately, because social media, you get the likes, the the friends list, all that because of what you produce on the court or off the court. And so that's a struggle, but it takes a special mindset to be able to get past that train of thought or that frame of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
It does. So we're gonna talk about that a little bit more. But going to Michigan State, your senior year, you ran into another injury. You kind of you struggle to get through that mentally. And so, what was the next step? I think, did you play one more year after that when you had to have surgery again on your foot?
Yeah, I played one more year.
Okay,
So I got a medical red shirt year.
okay. And after getting that medical red shirt year and playing, how did that last season go?
It was for me, it was a win because I was like, man, I finished the season. So I
Yeah.
was excited about that. Um, but then also it was I mean, it had its challenges too, because it was after COVID. Um, and so because it was post COVID, things weren't the same.
Yep.
People were still getting COVID. So you had all of these policies in place.
Yep. Hmm.
So let's just say you in the middle of your season and your team gets one of your teammates gets COVID.
Yeah.
You have to go through X amount, X, Y, and Z policies, and all of these different things that you didn't necessarily have to do before
Right.
COVID came. So that proposed a challenge, and um, I mean, I think we were just in a. It was just a weird year for me for I think everybody.
Yep. Hmm.
I don't think it was just me personally. I think it was a
Right. It's
weird year.
everybody. I mean,
Yeah, I
we're
think
finally back to normal to a certain.
yeah,
I mean, we're kind of back to normal now in 2024,
yeah,
but yeah, 20. You're talking about 2021, probably, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it was still kind of, touch and go when it came to
yeah,
COVID and all the
yeah,
policies and regulations.
yeah. It was just a weird year, just a weird year. But I think during that year, there was more. I got more of an opportunity to see myself um, from more of a holistic standpoint, where I wasn't just thinking about myself as a basketball player. I was beginning to see the other sides of me that were always there, that my parents always highlighted, that people always talked about. I just didn't always I just want sentiments clearly. But that year I was a part of the NABC athlete, so the National Association of Basketball Coaches, National Association of Basketball Coaches.
Hmm.
Um, I was a part of a cohort of athletes I think it might have been I don't think it was the first cohort. I was about to say the first cohort, but I was a part of a cohort of athletes who were working with actually Michelle Obama's brother.
Oh wow.
And yeah, and we just talked about just different things that could be changed. We It was like a cohort of athletes that was coming together, and we just put our minds together about different things that just could be different, that we could impact in a positive way. Um, and I think that was really cool by the NABC to do that, because they were trying to get a better understanding of players too, which I think that's wise. And so being a part of that cohort, um, actually been elected as like the vice president
Oh
of that
wow.
cohort. Um,
Good job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I received that compliment. Received that good job. But being a part of that, it it just starts showing it starts showing me the many different sides of me,
Mm,
and it helped me see that what helped me see that my athletic identity didn't have to be a prison, but it could be a platform.
yes. Yes.
Um, and so being a part of that, then just having some time by myself because I got COVID.
Hmm.
And so because I got COVID during the season, I had to sit away. I had to sit out from some games, but I had time to still work out, but still just be by myself more.
Hmm.
And being by myself more, I was able to learn more about myself. So I remember one day I was listening to John Maxwell. He was doing a podcast, or maybe like a leadership teaching or something like that. And as I just listened to him and I'm watching him, I'm like, man, I feel like I can do something similar to that. I feel like listening to him helped me be able to see that I had a gift to communicate, and my ability to communicate could also impact people through the vehicle of my athletic identity.
Mm.
Um, and then even, having time to be in my master's program. So I was in the master's program my last year of college when I was, still playing. And that master's program, man, it just exposed me. It exposed me to me in a way that I had never been exposed to me. I just like, man, I like to learn. I
Yeah.
like to study. I like to, I like to see. I like to see things from a different stand. So I just learned so much about myself. I grew more of a passion for education and leadership. And so, I mean, my senior year was challenging, but also there were so many different areas of my life that were being um, highly impacted in a very positive way,
Right. Wow.
because because I just had some time. And then also I think I was more open to.
Yep. Yep. All about being open. It's all
Yeah.
about being open. I like I told you previously, yeah, what we're trying to push at the mental pulse is to be more than your sport. In order to do that, you have to find an interest in education,
Yeah.
finding a hobby, something
Yeah.
that you like to do outside of your sport, and then finding friends outside of your teammates, because that
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
makes you, the holistic version of yourself.
Right.
You realizing that you like to do more things than just play your sport. So
Yeah.
that's good to hear. So in regards to you probably was at this decision since it was your last year in Michigan State, what was next? So tell us how that went.
Yeah. So I was in the middle of, I think I might have said this earlier in the podcast, but I was in the middle of um actually choosing an agency to represent me. And at that time I was looking at three different agencies. But I had a conversation with Roger Price,
Hmm.
and he had been someone that was coaching me and mentoring me, just because he just wanted to. He just extended his hand out, and I received it. And so we would have conversations. And one day I was having a conversation with him. This is why I'm still in the middle of, choosing,
Yep.
hadn't chose an agency yet. So I'm in the middle of that. And so I'm talking to him about just all of these different things that are taking place in my life. And he's being somewhat of like a life coach to
Okay.
me, um, unofficially, more or less like a friend, but he was also doing that for me as well. So um, having these different experiences during the season that I just talked about, it also was leading me to see like, man, I want to help people understand themselves, and then also in that help them be able to actually deploy into their purpose. So I want to help people discover their purpose, and then I want to help people deploy into their purpose. Um, and so I'm having these conversations with him, and I tell him in the conversation that, man, I only want to go play because I feel like I will be able to help myself financially so that I can do what I actually am desiring to do in this current season of my life. And so he asked me a question. He was like, "Well, if you had the money,
Hmm.
would you still go play?"
Right.
And I was like, "No, I wouldn't go play." And when I heard myself say that, I was like shocked.
Right.
But I had already said it though. I just didn't hear. I didn't have a mirror. But I think that's why it's so good to have mentors, because mentors can be mirrors for you.
Yep.
You need a mirror to be able to get the get the little crust out of your eye.
Right.
You know, you need the mirror to get the little booger that might be hanging. You need the mirror to wash your face. You need the mirror to see if your tie not crooked. And so like mentors, they become mirrors for you if you're open to their mentorship. And so that's
Yeah.
what he was doing for me. And we had that conversation. I was like, whoa. And so I after that, I also talked with Mark Baldwin about it, and he was another mirror for me.
Hmm.
After talking with them, I had some alone time with myself, and I just meditated on what I was saying, and I was praying about it, and I just felt like, I don't want to make this decision to go play. And so I had a conversation with the agencies. I told them what I was doing, and they wished me well. And from that standpoint, I really had no idea how to do what I was desiring to do. Um, but a door opened for me to work in the College of Business
Hmm.
at Michigan State. I was about to say Madison Academy, at Michigan State, for the multicultural business program. And then I also had another door open for me to be a TV analyst for the Big Ten Network. So after I graduated, I stepped into those two roles.
Nice. It's pretty
Yeah.
nice. Pretty
Mhm.
nice. How did you like being an analyst for the Big
It
Ten?
was fun. Yeah, it was fun. I got a chance to get exposed to so many different people,
Hmm.
build relationships. I mean, they're really good over there at Big Ten, just in terms of how they, at least from in my experience, in terms of how they work with me. Um, I enjoy being able to be challenged in that way when it came to communicating, because it's definitely a different way of
Right.
a different form of communication. But it was really fun, and it was somewhat challenging too, because I was working two jobs straight out of college,
Yeah.
and at that time, my only job that I worked was basketball. I hadn't had, I didn't have to have. I wasn't worried about life and how
Right.
life is to life, and what I need to do in life is life. And so it was a lot of things that I didn't know I was
Hmm.
prepared for, because I believe every God prepares you for your next season, even if it doesn't look like He is.
Right.
Um, but also, it was a lot. It was a lot of things to do. in that first year, my first year as a professional. So I ended up discontinuing working with Big Ten, and then I just finished. I just only worked with the multicultural business program. And
Gotcha.
then I also did like some speaking too when I
Okay.
was in. Yeah,
Okay. Is there a lot of preparation that goes into being an analyst?
yeah, it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot of preparation. I don't know everybody else's like process,
Mm-hmm.
um, but I did get to talk to a few people that are pretty good in the business. And I mean, the way that they coached me, it was like you need to be aware and up to date with what's going on. You need to, do your due diligence and
Mm.
do your homework because when you get on set, you want to have
Yeah.
information that's legit, and you
Yeah.
want to be comfortable. Which having information also brings a level of comfort too, because
Yep.
you don't have you're just not an empty vessel up there.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, which means that you really have to stay connected on all social media sites or at least Twitter. And then you have to
Yeah,
stay on top of the stats and
yeah, yeah. So I mean, and then I didn't really stay. I wasn't too up. I didn't have to stay too up to date on social media, but I did need to watch the games,
yeah.
and the games were like they were on. They were rolling. Yeah, they were rolling.
Yeah. So how did you get back to Huntsville after being with the program at Michigan State and after being a Big Ten analyst? So what made you come back to Huntsville?
So I got a job opportunity,
Okay.
and I think I talked about this earlier in my introduction, to actually work at Madison Academy.
Okay.
To work at Madison Academy, I got a text from Tom Behrman, who's the head coach there now,
Okay.
and he had sent me a message and was asking me would I consider, coming back home, and then I was like, yeah, I would, and we had a conversation. I had conversations with Brian Privet, who's the principal there, Casey Ferris, who's the president there, and so we ended up coming to the conclusion that my role would entail me being a assistant coach for the varsity boys basketball team and a Bible teacher. And so
Okay.
that's how I that's what drew me back to Huntsville.
Okay. So how has it been on the other side, being a coach and going back to through all our discussion today, like how is it with the youth or the young athletes and their mindset?
How is it? What do you mean? Like, how is it
So
coaching them, or how are they as
are they performance based or from a mental standpoint, a mindset standpoint, or are they, looking at, it's okay to fail type of thing? And are they looking for instant gratification,
mm,
things of that sort?
I think it's an array of personalities. I
Okay.
think with any like I guess if you look at it from a business perspective, like in the organization, you just don't have one kind of person. You have multiple kinds of people. Um, you have the person that's in the staff meeting that's they gonna try to think about 100 different things and talk about 100 different things at once. And then you have the person that has this conviction about just this one particular subject. And if everybody don't agree on it, then it's like all hell is broke loose. So they are frustrated. And then you have the person who only thinks about themselves. They don't really involve themselves. So you have all of these different kind of personalities,
Hmm.
like in an organization.
Okay.
And righteously so, like when those personalities are used for good,
Hmm.
they actually make the team move forward well. So taking that analogy and applying it to our team and just the different kinds of players that I've been exposed to in my time at Madison Academy, which has only been a short amount of time, I think um, there's just been one message that I've tried to communicate to our guys, And that is basically the message that I was sharing earlier about just them believing in themselves
Okay.
and knowing that you're a winner, and that's not something that you're fighting for, that's something that you're fighting from.
Right.
And this, I'm not saying that just to say it. I'm saying it because that's how you were created. That's in your DNA. That's that's your makeup.
Right.
And that's been the one message, and that was the one message. That's been the one message that I will communicate, that I've been communicating, and then that was the one message that I did throughout the season communicate to the guys, because even if somebody already knows they have the right mindset,
Mhm.
they just need to keep hearing it, because we do best when we rehearsing things. A good mindset doesn't just happen by chance. You don't.
Repetition.
Yeah, one of my coaches now, he talks about how you don't just drift into anything. And repetition is one way that you keep yourself from drifting, but you actually intentionally move to a certain place. And so even the people that believe that they're already winners, I communicated.
Yep.
The people who don't, I communicated. The people who are halfway in, halfway out,
Play it
I
out.
communicated. I just keep saying it. I keep communicating that. And I say it in so many different ways, but I'm saying the same thing.
Yeah.
And um, it's been exciting to be able to basically do what other coaches which were doing for me when it
Right.
came to helping me and my parents, that they were doing for me to help me, but ac- accept who I am.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Repetition is super important, along with, having good habits, making sure that you have good habits. And, sometimes those habits can seem kind of mundane and, you know, they get old, but those habits are what kind of pushes you over the top when
Yeah,
you're not sure of how to move forward. So if you have good
yeah,
habits, I tell that to my husband all the time. Like, we gotta have good habits, right? We gotta have good habits. And sometimes it takes longer to do those habits, but when they pay off in the long run, because
yeah,
things are gonna be in order if you do the same things. They're gonna be in order, when it's time to be in time, for things to happen. So yeah, so
yeah.
hey, Joshua, this has been awesome. I mean, with a capital A in my Dick Vitale, Dick Vitale voice. But no, seriously, this has been awesome. I mean, great, great interview. Great, time has been had today. So this
Mhm.
has been great. And obviously you are sharing and you're giving back to the kids, to the youth of today, of what was given to you. And so that's definitely commendable. So we
Thank you.
appreciate you have been on the podcast, on
Yeah.
the Mental Pulse podcast. So wish you well, and I'm sure we'll be talking soon. All right. Take
Okay.
care.
Thank you for having me.
All right, no problem. Thanks.
Yeah.